seen it. What was the significance of Huygens again?
I guess just to see what the Saturn's hot atmosphere was like. Just
Huygens was,
that was the probe.
that was the probe,
Mhm.
Huygens,
Right.
okay. And that was
Are you at the
after
right time?
one of the early.
Yeah.
Huygens was after one of the early astronomers.
Yeah, although I don't know.
I think you probably know more than I do about it.
Okay. I mean, I know it was named after an astronomer, but I don't know what his significance was.
Yeah, and he even supposedly cut his own glass and everything.
Oh, well, yeah.
Really, way back when, but
Yeah.
very, I can't think of the word that now. I guess he opened up a lot of doors.
Yeah. So, trailblazer type of thing.
Yes, forever.
Yeah.
We're not gonna be, Facebook, are we, or
What's that?
we're not gonna be photographed for Facebook, are we?
No, the presentation will go over YouTube, but I won't. Yeah, record you guys or anything like that.
So this is available on YouTube tomorrow?
Well, it's live streaming today, so you could go home and watch it tonight if the process is fast enough. In theory.
So they will be there. I don't have a computer at home. I use the public library. Those are computers too. I have my little flip phone that I love. I'm just so basic, yeah. I have an Android. Which I need to science. I'm grateful that the public library has such a good computer system. Yeah. It's nice, it is nice. I'm sure he said, by the way, Julie, by the way. I'm Julie, nice to meet you.
Nathan.
What is it?
Nathan.
Nathan, I see you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Dean Harless.
I see you.
Dean. I come to the meetings just because I love the building so much.
Oh, it's wonderful.
It just
It's
think a great
exciting.
place.
Just driving up here is exciting.
Yeah, it is.
You know, it's like a whole new world. It's funny seeing your words on it. On your right, seeing the words on your head. See, it's not clicking up, it's not clicking up. It's not clicking up there. Mess it up. But boy, should we continue? You need to put a question mark after that. You know? Reminds me of a law library. Yeah, right.
Astrophysical.
Well, when I was in London and I went to Westminster Abbey, I was so shocked that what's his name?
Hit buttons. I just
Hawking, Stephen Hawking. He was the most recent burial there.
Yeah.
He was right next to
Charles Darwin.
Sir Isaac Newton.
Isaac
He was in the
Newton.
Science section. I said, oh my God, I didn't know how to add.
It was close.
Sir Isaac Newton, right?
But they were both the Lucasian professor of mathematics.
They were both.
They were both the Lucasian professor of mathematics at Cambridge. 400 years of what 300 or 400 years.
What kind of professor?
Lucasian, Lucas, Lucasian.
And what is that?
It's a very special, prestigious title
Okay,
for,
okay.
Wow,
that's a good trivia question.
right, but they both were. And when you're that, you're
Well-
good at math.
Well, it's interesting that
You set up a time in school.
What's that?
It's nice to be set up on time. This is
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
We just,
This is what happens when I don't have to teach the same day, right?
not ready to go. And if something's taking charge And you can hang in there with whatever, what he did.
Very good care, that's for sure.
And we're still doing doing business.
Yeah.
But anyway, I really was, but everything excites me anyway. I've been many
Yep.
places or done many things, and I thought, oh my God, here's Sir Isaac Newton. I don't know how to act. Westminster Abbey itself, to me, was just incredible. Oh my gosh. Just as
Pretty dramatic.
yeah. St. Paul's was nice, but Westminster Abbey is just jaw dropping. I think the fact that Elizabeth lived as long as she did and was going forward with her business as long as she did was also amazing.
The long
She
time.
was a trooper, wasn't she? In World War II and just, and her parents were pretty interesting. $400 a pop.
We would have been fine before SC. Yeah. So I got it used and the guy wanted $1,000, he had about $1,000 worth of accessories. It's not for it to walk away. I think I saw some of the stuff before SC.
I don't, not the one
It's like
here.
I've waited, they didn't put the 4SE down, they did a thing, they. Well, the ASCs are
You
pretty.
see a lot.
It's a decent.
So-
You see the ring?
And it used to be,
As it's done.
never left with them, when we used.
We'll make it do that.
Were they-
So we're gonna open it up to discuss.
I could look for it. Very. Is,
Pretty much.
it's not first.
For-
If I remember right, that's actually.
That little, oh, no, it's not.
Well, I mean, it has to be something before, where the race, so you got everything. And it's like it seems to still hit the board gets off, so it thinks it's looking at something like it's not that recent. But, it's nice, cause it saves so much time when it works and you just won't set it in like, within 3 minutes, it's fine, just versus you having to.
You watch
that one.
Well,
This, get tried online.
Yeah. Did you see the last two ones with the car, with the staged accidents? The car accidents? Oh,
See better than.
Multiple.
I like you. I'm not just taking it away from
Yeah, and they were people driving on the phone. Right. And they used,
I'm part of it.
Rabbit.
Happy out in front of
Rabbit was the closest. But they prefer. This was in. Yeah, these people feel it's like now the power to take you a different. So this was a. No, it was a. That was a lot. That was something like the. I'm trying. Oh, but also we kind of.
this is a Charles time, that's, I thought of the, that's a good thing. Well, not as big as we thought, but since I've already got them, I haven't really seen the reason is that, that's just the last that I was doing. That's not what it is, was it? This is your. This is good. I don't want you.
Well, now you're here, we can start.
How are you, man?
Doing good. How are you?
Are you breathing a sigh of relief now? Years
A
over?
little bit. Just slowly waiting to wind down. Like still kind of keyed up because still got stuff to do. But
Oh, you still have stuff to do?
yeah, I'm prepping for. I have to prep for the fall order thing, stuff like that.
Oh, man, it never stops.
Yeah. Yep.
But,
But I got one more week to get that done. So
no, I'm this close to getting the inventory under control.
well, we'll
This
we'll
one.
meet up. We can chat about tonight after the thing. I think I know where that 114.
Is it just fur? Or
I think it was Chuck coughed. I think. Hey Chuck, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Can you see my slide?
I do. I see your slide. Yes.
All right, well, then that's awesome. But yeah, we'll catch up after things
Still thinking tomorrow or Friday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Good deal.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started up today. Thank you all for being here tonight. We are in our monthly member meeting, which is obviously open to the public. And I know that we have some visitors here today and new members, non-members, it's all the same. Just welcome everybody and thanks for coming. Today, we're going to go through and do our normal meeting etiquette because we are an official organization. And so I'm the current president of the board. And so we'll go through the happenings from the previous month and then talk about some of the things coming up on our calendar for BSAS in terms of outreach and things like that. And then we're going to kind of go through and do kind of like a telescope 101, of course, for like, learning what a telescope is and what it's supposed to do and, kind of learning about how you can use different telescopes to acquire whatever you're interested in the night sky. So a little thing I just put together. I don't know how well it'll be. There's a lot of people here that are definitely more expertish than I, but it was a good learning experience for me. So we'll go through and do that. Let's see. So first off, we'll go ahead and officially start up. Welcome to the BSAS monthly member meeting for May of 2025. I'm Tom Beckerman, the current president. I usually throw some pictures up here. This is something I've just been playing around with. I didn't have time to go dive through Google Groups before a thing today. I've been imaging the whirlpool when the clouds give us a second. And then today, this is the sun. I haven't seen the sun in forever, it feels like. And so I thought I'd celebrate and I just managed to sneak out and get a few images. So I was pretty excited about that. All right. Hopefully you guys had a chance to look at the reporter. If you're a member, if you're not a member or member, we have the Eclipse, which is our newsletter for the organization. We post minutes for previous meetings, including board meetings and member meetings. Those of you that had a chance to read, are there any questions regarding the happenings from the last month? Didn't think so. As far as members go, Keith isn't here today. And so I have the number. We are at 238 members. So slowly growing. I think I've seen that there's a few more to add coming up on Night Sky Network. And I don't think Theo's here. She may be kind of running late. I do have some numbers from our treasurer's report in regards to the money that we had at our board meeting on at the beginning of the month. We have a total bank balance of $8,735.27. expenses since last member meeting. We pay for our Zoom account, which is $17.47. And then we paid for the remaining year of our storage unit for our telescopes, which we're really excited about. So $352 went to that. We've got $526.12 in PayPal, and that's from payments for dues, and that'll get transferred over to the bank account soon. Those dues go towards, or the dues that you guys pay through PayPal, and they go into there. We use to buy scopes and upgrade equipment and things like that that you can use as the club. Theo also usually includes social media, and so social media for Facebook, we're liked by 2.4 thousand, followed by 2.7 thousand. So we're still growing there. All right, that's why it's not going. All right. As far as what we're doing today, just a general business. Our next member meeting is June 18th of next month. We have our meetings the third Wednesday of every month, unless there's some other event that's double booked us. It'll be here. For members, there's a Zoom link that gets sent out, usually the week of, or maybe even the week before if I'm on it. But we'll always be streaming on YouTube for the public and non-members. So if you can't make it, you can find us on YouTube. We're always looking for Star Party locations and speaker recommendations. If you don't have speaker recommendations, you get what we're going to get tonight, which is me talking about telescopes, which I don't know how many times I can pull something out just to throw up here. But if you have speaker recommendations or a topic that you're interested in hearing about, let me know, and I can see about finding somebody or learning about it myself and talking about it to you guys again. Let's see. For new people here or new members or visitors, you can find us at bsasnashville.com. And on here, there's a whole wealth of information. A couple of my favorite things. We're selling our poster still. This was a couple years old now, but if you're a hatch print collector, this is something we had specially made for 90-year anniversary. Pretty sure we're coming up on our 100 shortly. So I don't know if the new hatch print will come out or not. But Theo has those available. They're $20 in person, 25, and she'll mail them to you. Another cool thing about our site is we have this Nashville clear sky chart. So if you want to go out and, under Nashville skies, it's a little bright. And so whenever we want to go out and see some really cool stuff, we usually try and get to a little bit darker skies. And sometimes it takes a little bit of driving. And this kind of tells you whether it's worth it to go out and take a look or not. I took this screenshot on Monday, and you can see how well it's doing. And so here we are on Wednesday. The darker, the better. And so this was 2 days ago. And it said, hey, Wednesday, if you're done with the meeting early and you want to go look outside, might not be bad. And so it looks like it's cleared right now. Knock on wood. I've been, had bad luck with that before, but it's pretty cool feature that we have on the site. There's also a couple of other things on here. If you're interested in becoming a member, there's a little link right here. And if you click on that, it'll pull this up with all the information on membership. There are a few benefits that we have. The Eclipse newsletter, which I mentioned earlier, it's got some good articles in it and upcoming events. And then you get discounted subscriptions to Astronomy, Sky, and Telescope through the Astronomical League. And then with that, you also get the Reflector, which is their news article too, or newspaper as well. You get a vote in BSAS elections, which is held once a year and usually in December, and invitation to private star parties. So private star parties is where we as members, essentially get to go out and take the scope out and play around in the sky and, acquire our images or, really do our searching. It's relatively not expensive, $25 per year for a single person. A family is $35 per year, student 15. So it's not going to break the bank, hopefully. But again, those dues really go to help us out with, trying to upgrade equipment as well as our new storage area. One of the other perks of being a member is that we have a loaner equipment program. On Google Groups, also on Google Docs. If you wanted to scan that QR code, it would take you to the telescopes that we have available for loan. And there's no cost to you other than just being a member. And so the equipment's available. You can find out if you're thinking about, well, I like what he talked about today. I'm interested in a Dob. You can borrow a Dob from us, or if you wanted to see what an SCT is like, we have an SCT or two. And so you can take a look at there and see if we have one. If you're interested in buying, definitely feel free to try before you buy. It's a great way to see if you'll use it. If you do already have a telescope borrowed from us, let us know. Drop in, tell us how you're doing. If you can, pop into a star party, talk about the sky with us. It's always fun to get out there and share the night sky. If you also have a scope and you're struggling with it, doesn't seem to give you the views that you want, feel free to reach out and we can try and help out as much as possible, like collimation or fuzzy stars for some reason or another. You don't think it's what it's supposed to be. We can either tell you, yeah, that's what you're going to see, or we can give you an idea on how to potentially fix it. Let's see. As I mentioned, we have a monthly newsletter called The Eclipse. You can typically get to that newsletter from clicking through here. There's a pretty cool repository on the website. It'll run through, it'll run through all the way back to 2002 or 2003, 2004. I can't remember how far back it goes, but there's a lot of eclipses that have been stored online in PDF format that is a lot of wealth of information as well. We also have discussion forums that we try and communicate with the public, share our love for the sky with. You can find us. We have some socials that we use quite a bit. Facebook, as I mentioned before, our likes and followers are slowly growing. Thank you, Donna. Just as I like going through and looking at cool posts that I didn't know about, and I hadn't seen this article put out by Sky and Telescope, but here they showed a Titan shadow transit and they had a write-up on it. And so I'm pretty excited about that because I'm trying to get a planetary scope going for myself. And so it gives me like, ooh, I could potentially go after those kind of things. So if you've never seen Titan shadow transit, it's a pretty cool article to read. We're also on Instagram. This is, again, a screenshot from Monday. I don't know if we've added anything because I haven't checked it today. But on the Instagram, you can find our next member meeting information, star party information, whether there potentially is a cancellation, stuff like that. You can also find pretty pictures, typically put out from our members and stuff. And we'll go into those a little bit more here in a second. If you want to be featured on our Instagram page, we don't have a huge bit of outreach, but we'd love to, promote our club and promote members of our club and the hard work that you do. If you want to be featured on it, just send us your image, send us your Instagram handle so we can acknowledge you, and you can send those to the info@bsasnational.com or post it on our Google groups. And I'll talk about that in a second. One of the cool things just recently put up, this is a member, Jeffrey Horn. He posted this image of the Spaghetti Nebula with Mars down here. Check out that integration time, not a typo, 569 hours, 4 minutes, and those 30 seconds really just put it over the top, right? It's always exciting to see these pictures that come out. We have a bunch of really talented people that are doing imaging. And so with that, I wanted to bring everybody into the know about our Google Groups. The Google Groups is how we internally communicate with each other. It's kind of our member board. You can post here and the post will go to anybody subscribed to the Google group. And so it's a good way to communicate. Hey, is anybody going out to our dark sky site today? Is anybody going, how many telescopes do we have going to the star party? Things like that. On our Google group, you can find a few things here. This is the Natchez Trace permit that we have for the year. We've got 2 spots out on Natchez Trace that we have access to, meaning that we can be out there from dusk to dawn and we won't get rousted in theory. So if you do want to attend one of our private star parties out there, please be sure to have a permit on you. It can be a digital copy or print. But also this is where you'll find the equipment list that you can click and see what scopes are available to use. Our equipment list is kind of undergoing a renovation right now, but it still has our scopes up there, which can be borrowed. Let's see. On here, we also host pop-ups and star parties, such as, Steve posting here, busy star party month, where we list off a whole bunch of upcoming things that we have. Sometimes occasionally we'll have pop-up star parties where it's like, oh my gosh, it's Tuesday, but our sky is amazing. We're going to try and get out and go here, right? Because typically we have it on the weekends. But the good nights are few and far between these days. So sometimes those are posts, those are exciting. We also have a few notable things, like first dark sky, county designated Wyoming. Like, we're big proponents of dark sky. Also, this is where Jeffrey posted his picture of the Spaghetti Nebula before we posted on Instagram. So, if you really like your eye candy for some of these images, this is where you can find. There's the images. All right, and here you can see these were posted in the last couple of weeks. Keith with his whirlpool, Bobby with his whirlpool, Jeffrey with Spaghetti Nebula. Sherry was showing some envious sky. Haven't seen a good Milky Way yet this season. And then Brad posting here. It's some amazing images just coming through. Like I said, we have a really talented group. Theo also posted. She got a chance to see a 37-inch Dob, which we'll see what a Dob is whenever I talk about telescopes. But I'm guessing this guy here, that's a person. Like, so the problem with these Newtonians is that the eyepiece is at the end, so you got to figure out how to get to it. So you can have the biggest one in the world, you still got to get up there somehow to see. But that's pretty impressive. So Theo shared that. I also wanted to throw out there that if you're into astronomy and astrophotography or just like to see really pretty pictures, we started a BSAS AstroBin group. I'm in it. I haven't started posting my pictures yet. But you can see here's the most recent one, Heath's post here. But there's a lot of really cool pictures that come through here. Jeffrey also had an APOD a while back, and so it was posted on here. So like I said, if you like eye candy, it's there for you. Just reach out to us through the Google groups. Keith can send you an invite to the AstroBin if you're interested. We run our organization through the Night Sky Network. The Night Sky Network allows us to keep rosters, and when I send an email about an event, we send it through here. So if you're interested in becoming a member, we'd ask you to come here and set up an account, and then go back to the website and set up the PayPal and send us that, and we have to kind of sync those up and then hit buttons on our end to get you added into Night Sky Network. But through this, there's a calendar that shows upcoming events, like here we are today, and then our next public star parties listed here. And so it's another good place to find out information what the club's doing. Trying to get better about posting these. This is the public page. The private page will also have locations and times of our private star parties for members only. So I also like to point out that the Night Sky Network is a really good just normal website for finding fun space junk for those of us that need our fix of space junk. This is a pretty cool set of articles about finding exoplanets. I've always been interested in these kind of things. And, it basically talks about how they go through and analyze these. They can look at like a transit curve, or, they'll be following a star, and if it dims a little bit because there's an obscuration, they'll go back through and analyze that data a little bit better and see if it's consistent. And so you can find a planet that way. They can look at Doppler shift, so basically how the light is either coming towards us or leaving us. They can find stuff that way. And then what I like is this direct imaging, where holy cow, you can actually start to, like, we're getting to a point where we're seeing planets around stars. So that's pretty exciting. If you were to click on that QR code, there's a link in there to their exoplanets page on NASA. And I, again, went down a rabbit hole and just started clicking things. And this blew my mind. We're almost at 6,000 confirmed exoplanets. And I remember like horrible. Like I remember whenever, oh my gosh, we found the first exoplanet, like things like that. Now we're up here, and so it's pretty crazy the technology that we're at. Um, when you scroll down this page a little bit more, it comes up with some further links. Journey beyond our solar system with guided tours. Oops. You can go and look at some of what these exoplanets potentially would look like. How do they find them? So they give a little bit more information on, the technologies and techniques. And then down here, interactive gallery, some of the most intriguing ones. And then what I always like is this one here, want to help us look. I'm a science teacher. And so I always try and promote citizen science. So students, different anybody really can go out and take part in these scientific explorations, and this data can go on to help publish and find with new findings. I've done a few of these where basically looking at light traces, where you're looking at, this is what this block of data looks like, and you're looking for a bloop, and you basically go, well, there was something interesting here, and you circle it. And if enough people circle it, it kind of flags it up the chain, and they go, oh, there might be an exoplanet here. And so they'll go through and do that. And so if you're just bored on your computer and you like going through these graphs, it's a great place to do that. So there's a few of these. Hi, Theo. All right. Also on the Night Sky Network, they also have a lot of outreach resources and things to do to plan out your viewing and any events that you want to do outside. Let's see. They always put up an article of cool things in the sky right now. Last time we were here, I've talked about Comet Swan potentially coming up to us, and oh, poor Comet Swan did not make it around the sun.
Comments break your heart.
Yeah, they do. Just like they broke up. So, but it was cool. Like it brought it up, and then like literally like 3 days later, it was gone or something like that. Here you see Comet Chaser disappointed as Swan falls apart. I was journeying around the sun. So, well, at least it was something cool that we got notified of. On the website, there's a lot of cool things again to help you plan your night. Here's a night sky planner of the moon, current moon and sun data. Again, this was 2 days ago, so we're not here just yet. We're in the last quarter, so we're working towards new moon. Over here, you see they also have clear sky charts, sky maps, and spot the station. The clear sky chart is where you can get information on what the night's going to be like. Sky maps is pretty cool because if you've never used a planisphere, they're not too hard to pick up, but it tells you where the stars are going to be at during the night. Different directions you're facing and different times are posted down here, and you can look up and see, oh, well, there's the Big Dipper, and you kind of follow what you're after. On the back side of these things, they always have cool things to see for the month. They show you things you can see with the naked eye, binoculars, telescope, and things like that. So if you're bored and you've got a beautiful night, it gives you a list of things that you can go after. I also like to point this out, the spot the station thing, and I've talked about it a few times before because I think it's amazing now that we have an app that'll tell us when the station is going to go above. Because for the longest time, I had email and text messages set up, and if you didn't update it once a year, they'd stop sending them to you, and I stopped getting them. But now I've got it on my phone, and so this was last month's image. This is this month's image. Notice they're stopping the email and text message service. So you can either go to this site or download the app. And the site's pretty cool. When we come through here and look, it shows you a couple places like Nashville. If you click on here, it'll show you opportunities to see here. We're out here towards Brentwood. If you pulled up the app now, it would locate your actual place, and it'll give you times and locations to look for the ISS passing over. This is our sighting locations. Like I said, I put this up on Monday. I have it filtered right now, but you can see a lot of really quick 1 minute and 2 minute passes. Here on the 22nd, 23rd, we start getting a little bit longer, 29 degrees above. It'll get a little bit higher but I really like the big ones that go all the way across the sky. Those ones are beautiful, but at least it shows you what's up and coming. Did I? Come on. This is the app itself. Again, this was on Monday when I took these screenshots. Showed me at work here. This is where the ISS was, and if you're just bored with it and wanted to see where things are at, you can spin around the Earth and moves and things like that, and show you where it's at, where it's going. It shows you when the next sighting is that are set up for my picky requirements. And so when I click on that, the next sightings list, it comes up with all my next sightings, and I have it filtered to max height of 30. So kind of gets up a little bit higher, and to filter out anything less than 2 minutes. And so my phone will alert me, so I know, oh, I can go out and look and try and wave at the astronauts. So, but it's like I said, it's a really cool little app. And now that they're not doing text messages or emails anymore, it's the way to get the information on your phone. All right. As far as previous events and outreach, we had a few things scheduled over the last month. As has been the pattern, a couple of them have been rained out. The April 19th Star Party at War Trace rained out. On April 26th, we had a private star party at Natchez Trace Parkway. I believe a few people did show up to that one. On May 3rd at Warner Park, rained out again. On the 17th, which was a couple days ago, we actually finally got our star party out at War Trace. So hooray for that. Steve, how'd that go?
Yeah, it went really well. We had a small crowd, way out there, so a little bit out of the year.
Yeah.
A nice dark site, and some of you guys may have seen the review email, so the only surprise was the big floodlights came on, but we'll try to get that turned off next time.
Just want to make sure you could see where you were going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we had going on last month. As far as what's upcoming this Saturday. Yeah, it's this Saturday. We have a private star party planned for the Water Valley Overlook. Again, this is out on the Natchez Trace. So if you're going to go there, out there, make sure you have a permit. You can find it on the Google Groups. If you don't have access to Google Groups, email us or get in touch with us and we can get you in there. I know that there are some invitations because it shows like who we've invited and pending invites. And so sometimes like those just get sent to junk mail. So if you're like, why haven't they invited me? Check your junk mail or email us and I can just force add you in. Like you don't even get a choice. You don't even need an invite. I'm just going to put you in there. So if you're waiting, we can fix that. Our next public star party that Steve is running out at Hidden Lake Trail. It's off of McCrory Lane as you're going west of town. Take the exit, hang a right. 3 miles down the road.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's not too far. It'll be on your left as you're going down that way. 8:30 to 10:30. On May 30th, we have a public star party at Montgomery Bell. Chuck will be out there running that. And it's a Friday. So we typically have a lot of these on Saturdays, but this is a nice Friday one. Chuck will be out there doing solar from 6 to 8. And then once the sun goes down, 7:59-ish, he'll start looking at stuff in the sky. So hopefully the weather will cooperate. The next day on May 31st, we have a public star party out at Bell's Bend, starting at 9 and going to about 11. So if you can make it to any of those, we'd love to have you. If you wanted to bring a scope, feel free. The more the merrier to these public star parties. Let's see. As far as our next member meeting, I already mentioned June 18th, 2025 is the third Wednesday. We'll be meeting around 7 p.m. Discussion to be determined. I haven't figured out what we're going to talk about yet. I've got a couple people I'm chatting with, maybe giving us a talk, but I'll get that sent out sooner rather than later. All right, so that's all I have for the business portion of the meeting today. Does anybody have any questions on anything we covered or any business they wanted to bring up? Awesome. Yeah.
Where would you find the act? How would you pick the actual address at Montgomery Bell when you all need?
If you're interested, just send us a message.
I think
It's
I
at-
should have a map. If you click on the link for the star party on the website. I think there is a Google map.
Okay,
link to
so-
that. But it's where it is it's next to, there's a field right next to the campground. And so when you leave, it's kind of a squirrely road to get there, but, I think you end up on 70, but you end up going through White Bluff. But anyway, there's a road that goes through the park between state highways. And so it's just off that road, but you pass the visitor center, you keep going, eventually you pass the campground, which is closed this year for renovation. And then there's a right turn down to the ball field, so it's just a big old ball field. You scroll around that, there's a pavilion there, and that's where Chuck usually sets up some of his models and posters and stuff. But,
Yeah, if you're coming during the daylight, just look for the big Dob out there on the field somewhere. It'll be just on your right on the ball field. If you come after dark, look for the red lights.
Chuck speaking from above. Thanks, Chuck. All right. Any other questions about club business? All right. Well, this brings us to the telescope kind of telescope 101, intro to telescopes. I am a biology professor. I am not an astronomer per se. I have a hobby and I like taking pictures of my sky. So my first introduction to the night sky was essentially pointing a camera straight up and setting a 30-second exposure. And that was it. And then that's what I used for my telescope for the next, I still use it. So me learning about telescopes, this is, kind of a new adventure for me. And so I was like, yeah, well, let's learn about telescopes together. So you're going to get how I like to learn about things. And so if you have any questions about telescopes, feel free to ask. There's probably people here that know a lot more than I do that can correct me when I'm wrong. Not if, but when. All right, here we go. All right. So the purpose of today's talk is just to kind of understand how telescopes work. We put out a survey at the beginning of the year asking about potential topics and things like that. And a lot of people are still kind of questioning, like, there's a lot of choices when it comes to telescopes. What does this mean? How does this work? And things and so forth. And so I just wanted to kind of get everybody somewhat on the same page and put this out there. And it's on YouTube. So if you see something you're like, oh, that's kind of cool, I want to go back to that, you can always use that as a resource. And so I've found this picture. Somebody obviously put up some sort of presentation or built this picture a lot prettier than I could have. But we have a couple different telescopes up here. And so the question is why these shapes? What's important about them? What's different about them? What's going to give me the best opportunity to see what I want to see in the night sky? Because whenever you look up in the sky, there's planets, there's nebula, there's galaxies, all sorts of things. And depending on what you're after and what your goals are, each of these has a different little niche that can come up to. As far as the anatomy of a telescope, you'll hear a lot of really interesting buzzwords like your optical tube assembly, optical referring to the lenses and things like that. And that's the main body of your scope. You'll often see it as the OTA, or optical tube assembly. And this is essentially what's catching the light and focusing it for you. And so from there, we have eyepieces that plug into our telescope, which allows us to access the light that the telescope is collecting. We have a variety of different mounts that we put our telescopes on. And so the mount is essentially what joins our optical tube to our tripod. And you'll typically hear from people that have done this a while that the mount is pretty much the most important piece of equipment. And so people usually put a lot of money into a mount before they'll start putting money into the OTAs and things like that, because you got to be able to operate the OTA and get it to do what you want to do. And these mounts really help with that. Some of them are electronic. Some of them are run by hand. There are different types of mounts, alt azimuth, which is essentially up, down, left, right. Really good for observational viewing. If you're into astrophotography like I am, the equatorial mounts, you point them towards the North Star and they'll kind of follow along a star as the Earth kind of rotates around. We have a finder scope up here. Depending on the quality of the finder scope, you can hopefully center on a star and your optical tube will be pointed in that general direction. It'll kind of give you an idea. Red dot finders, I've had decent use with them. I keep on forgetting to turn the red dot off. And so running through batteries pretty quick. But those are pretty good whenever they're set. Just basically figuring out what you're pointing at. And then you'll often see focusers, diagonals, and filters and things like that. And so once you figure out what you're after and how to get there, you'll find, oh, sometimes my images are upside down. And so we got diagonals for that. Or if you wanted to put a piece of recording equipment like a camera on there, sometimes you'll need diagonal to get it up out of the way. Different filters let you see different things in the night sky. You filter out light pollution and things like that. But today, I want to kind of talk about this optical tube assembly because the main thing with that telescope is trying to collect light. Because when we look at the night sky, we see this, right? Now, this is I didn't take this picture, somebody else did, but there's a lot of really cool things up here. I can see Orion, I can see the Pleiades. I know that the Orion Nebula is right here. It's the brightest nebula we can see with the naked eye. It's pretty cool. However, it leaves a lot to be desired, right? And so I know that if I can magnify in that area a little bit and collect more light, you can start to see some of these other features of that come out. There's also a really cool dark nebula here, the Horsehead Nebula, the Pleiades. Even though it looks like a group of stars, there's nebulosity there too, so gases that are being lit up by those stars. And so the question is, how do you get to that? And that's where collecting light and these telescopes really comes into play. So why use a telescope? Well, a lot of people think, telescope's going to magnify. Well, part of just what it does is going to bring that light closer to you. And so, yes, it magnifies it because it makes it appear like it's not billions of miles away, right? But the other main important thing that it does is it gathers light. And so you'll hear some of these really big ones called light buckets because they just soaking in all sorts of light and really give you really great views. They can collect light more efficiently than our eye, and they can magnify these distant objects. Now, they're good for viewing faint or distant objects. So you can also use them to look at closer things like planets. Now, planets aren't necessarily close, but whenever you're talking about galaxies and things like that, they're closer than those. Now, the best thing I like to do is look at how our naked eye works, and then how can we improve upon our eye. And so there's a couple different ways that we can look at the sky. We often tell people binoculars are a good way to see if you're interested in the night sky. Binoculars are a lot easier to carry than a telescope, and they're going to give you a wider field of view. And a lot of really pretty star clusters pop out. And if you search around the Milky Way, you'll see a lot of really beautiful structures come through there. And then the telescope and how that kind of comes into play. Now, to give you an idea of what we can look at with the naked eye, this is Saturn up here, 12 by 50 binoculars, so a good amount of magnification. Here's Saturn. You can't really see the rings. You can tell it's maybe an oval, right? Not too much. But with telescopes, well, your usage may vary, right? You can see the rings here. This is probably this could have been my picture. This is the best I've imaged Saturn out of my DSLR and a 600 millimeter lens, right? But I haven't yet gotten this. But telescope needed, right? And so if you're wanting to get that kind of detail, well, how do you do that? Well, as a biology person, I always like to point out some things. I teach anatomy and things like that. If you were to see something, how long could you capture that light? Meaning that how long does your eye process what you're seeing before it has to send feedback to the brain? Now, the eyes are a very important sense. They tell you when a ball's coming at your head. They tell you when your sister's going to slug you. They tell you cars and things like that. You have reaction time that depends on this. And so it can't just sit there and collect light and send it to your brain. And so it's always taking little snapshots. And if you're a picture person, the average shutter speed of your eyeball is about 1/25, 1/50, which is about every 0.04 seconds. So every 0.04 seconds, your eyes are taking a shot and sending it to your eye. Now, how much light can you collect in 0.04 seconds? There's not much at all. And so it's amazing that we can, process even what we can see out of the skies. And so the way it works, signal comes in here, goes through the thalamus, back to the visual cortex, and we process and go, oh, that's cool. And we put it in association areas so we remember where stuff's at. And so that's all fine and good in the daylight, but how do we see in the night? Because if we're only getting 0.02 to 0.04 seconds to process things, well, how can we do that? Because we know that over time, well, our eyes will adapt and we'll be able to start seeing better. And so as we sit in the dark sky, our eyes will accumulate or will acclimate, right? So you can see right away, pupils get bigger. And so what that does is increase the aperture of our eyeball, so more light can come in. So we're getting more bang for our buck, right? We also know that after about 15 to 20 minutes, we switch primarily to rods. Now, rods and cones are little cells in the back of our eyeballs that go, hey, we're being stimulated. And as I'm looking at you now, the cones are detecting colors and changes in colors and shadows and things like that. It doesn't do us very, very well in the dark. And so over time, cones will shut off, rods will essentially become more sensitive, and we start to be able to acknowledge the night sky. However, as awesome as this is, we're still limited to our own biology, which means that we've only got 0.04 seconds to still pull in whatever's in the dark. And so the question, when I was setting this up is how do we use this 0.04 seconds? Right now, not just necessarily looking at the sky, but like if I'm standing in a dark room, well, what do I need? Well, I can flood something with light because as I'm looking at you, you can look and see what color your shirt is and everything like that. The cool thing about physics is the reason why your shirt is green is because that's the color of the light being reflected off your shirt. It's literally absorbing everything else. And so if I hit you with a flashlight, that light is going to bounce back at me. It's going to light you up and I can see you. And so I can flood my eyeball with all that light, right? And so I can increase the light coming off my object. It's like use a flashlight, possible with largish items, right? Depending on what you're pointing at. What about those items that give off their own light? Well, I can turn up the brightness. Like if I'm looking at a light bulb, more light makes it back to the back of the eye. And so I'm essentially increasing the amount of stuff that I can process in that 0.04 seconds. And so I'm using what I can. The problem is that what we're after in the night sky is typically stable. And so I can't shine a flashlight on it to make it brighter. I can't turn up its brightness. That'd be cool, right? So there's things that we can do in order to start picking up those images. And if you can increase the amount of light that makes that image, well, you can start getting more input that you can start processing. We can do that through binoculars and telescopes and lenses of the light. And so what I mean by incidence of light is if you think about it in just relative general terms, now I say light moves in a straight line. I put my quotes there because physics are funny. Light will wobble and wave and go around things with gravity and all sorts of things like that. But as far as we're thinking, it moves in a straight line, meaning that if I have a candle here, it's going to be able to shine a light all the way through here as long as my holes are lined up. Now, there's a whole bunch of videos of third and fourth graders doing this experiment saying, indeed, it does line up. I can see the candle. Now, the purpose of that is when they move this to the side, like they can lift it up or lift it over, well, to me, it's intuitive that, well, now I can't see the candle because my holes aren't lined up. But what that tells you is that light moves in a straight line until it hits something. And then it just stops. And so that's one of those cool things that visual astronomers really like to think is that when they're looking at a galaxy or a planet, those lights travel, that photon of light traveled that far to die on your eyeball. And it's kind of a cool thing to think about, right? But for general purpose, light essentially moves in a straight line. If you're looking at it through a sun, so not just a candle, right? We know how much light the sun puts out. If you have one hole, well, it's going to do the same thing, right? It's going to pass through and you're going to get a spot on the wall or a spot on the eyeball. Hopefully they're not staring at the sun through the window, but it's going to do the same thing. Now, if you pull this out of the way, well, the sun's not going to curve and go through that hole and then come back through this one, right? So it's going to continue that straight line. And what I like about this image is that they didn't just draw one line because we know that the sun is going to hit everything here. And so that light source isn't just one stream. it's actually, millions and billions of light streams hitting its target at one point in time. And so that's what we mean by incidence of light. How many different ways can we catch this light source coming in? One of these cool things that you can do, it's kind of the same experiment, different kind of cardboards with different cutouts. And you can see that light is definitely moving in a straight line, right? And so if we can take advantage of that, well, now we have ways of, well, I can look at more than one stream of light. I can now maybe look at 2 streams or 3 streams, and it's additive. So the more light you can add in, the better your eyes can do in that 0.04 seconds. Now, this is something I learned whenever I was planning for the eclipse in 2017. Ritz cracker. Now, you can take your Ritz cracker and hold it up to the sun like that, and you can get cool things like this. You can go out and be like, oh, look, there's little holes there. And so what I've essentially done is condensed 5 little lines of sun into that Ritz cracker shade, right? Now, I did this today. Again, I saw the sun. I was taking pictures of it and I said, I'll grab my colander. And look, I made a little colander shadow. Now there's more than 5 lines of sun here, right? But if I were able to collect all that and focus it into one point, well, now my picture would be a little bit brighter, right? Now, what's also cool about light is that it mimics its source, right? So what that means is that during an eclipse, when that light hits, it's going to look like the eclipsing sun, right? So it's mimicking what it's coming from. Now, this is a sun spotter. They run about $500 to $600 if you can get them now, but there's instructions on how to build them if you're handy with a carpentry thing. But you can do this through your Ritz cracker. And so you get a whole bunch of little crescents. This, you can see the little crescents there. This was my one published image from the 2017 eclipse. They said, send us your best. And I sent them this folder with beautiful flares. And they put this in their video. I'm like, all right, this is what I got. But this was from the eclipse, right? So I essentially created a whole bunch of these streams mimicking my light source. Now, if I were standing on the other side of that colander, I could potentially see this, all those light rays coming down at me, okay? Now, my goal is if I can collect all those light rays and focus them into a single point, it's going to give me a much more brightness. And that's what we do with scopes and things like that. We take all those lines and focus them into one point, which in theory is going to give us a good view of the object that we're after. And so doesn't matter what's on this side, as long as we can catch multiple streams of it and focus it and look here, well, that's where we're in the money. Okay? Now, some people have done this before. Some people have done this cruelly to ants and things like that. I did it to my sister's behind once. I'm the last of 6 kids, so it's fair. But this is what happens, right? Now, the sun, obviously a really massive light source, comes through your magnifying glass. It does what it's supposed to and magnifies this light and really intensifies it on a focal point. And so that tells you the power of focusing all those light rays into one point. Now, if people did this, like during the eclipse, that they probably torch their eyeballs.
I actually made a little video about that where I put you put the solar filter on the front, right? You don't use binoculars, which is the magnifying glass, and then try to look at that through your solar filter because so I burned through a pair of glasses, so it actually doesn't take long.
Yeah. The power of the sun is amazing. If you want to see the proof, I'm pasty. I'll go outside in 25 minutes during a sun and I'll be red by the time I come back in. The sun is powerful, right? But this is our concept, right? Collecting light in order to see what we can see. Now, what you're doing to those light rays is bending them. And physics is funny. Now, once you go from the air, the vacuum of space into our atmosphere, light is traveling at a certain speed. But once it starts going through fluids and different densities of things, light speeds up or slows down. Well, typically it slows down. And so if you put an objective lens in front of it that has a little bit of a curve through it. The light up here is going to make it through quicker than the light down here, and so forth. And so what it'll do is it'll essentially force it to change shape, because light wants to go in this direction. But if you hit a curve, right, like imagine like this is a ice spot or something like that, you're still going to be pushing through until you only have one tire that still has traction, and that tire is going to push you a little bit, and it's going to cause you to kink over, and then you're going to go through the glass in that path. Same thing happens all through here. Now remember, we're not just collecting one ray, we're collecting millions of these things and hoping to get us on one focal point. Another fancy term for bending is refracting. And so we have telescopes that are called refractor telescopes. And this is what they do. They're long tubes with an objective lens at this end, and their goal is to bend light to this focus point, where we can have an eyepiece that will look at this point and has different magnifications on it. So this one scope is going to be really good at magnifying light from this lens to here. And that's that. It's our job to figure out eyepieces to magnify what's coming through here. Okay, and so that's the basics of a refractor telescope. Now, the other thing about light is that this stuff happens. This could be a cool album cover for those that know, but if you get the sunlight or any light source that's pure coming through here, the sun is white, but in that light contains all of our visible spectrum. So we get a rainbow spit out the other side, right? Whenever you send it through a prism like this, the same thing happens where you hit a different medium. Some waves are traveling faster than the others, and they're going to make it through first, and then they're going to come back and be shot at a different angle out, and you can get this cool spectrum out of here. Now, that's really cool to do in a physics classroom, or showing this to my kids, like, look, a rainbow, and fun stuff like that. But as far as getting things through our lens, this becomes a problem, because our goal is to get everything that we see up there into that really fine point. Now, whenever we see this light coming through our lens, well, we start seeing this problem where the different colors start to separate out. And we call this chromatic aberration, chroma being colors and the light. And you'll notice that we don't really have our nice, fine focal point anymore. Now, some of the really nice glass that takes a lot of money to make and a lot of purity and things like that, they can limit this aberration as much as possible. The problem is with a lot of the cheaper kind of department store telescopes that they sell, they don't really focus too much on cleaning this stuff up, right? And so that's why we say, look into the quality of your optics. That's going to help you a lot. Now, what can we do about this? Well, if you're taking pictures with a lens that has problems with this aberration, here you can see this fringing. On a picture of the bridge, it looks kind of colored around here. Here you can see the moon. You can see that these colors just aren't lining up perfectly with what we're after. Now, this gets into a little bit of nomenclature in terms of our refracting telescopes. Whenever you look online for refracting telescopes, and you're like, I would like to buy one of these, they'll tell you a couple things, and you'll often see this term apochromatic. Now, apochromatic is kind of an achromatic on steroids. Now, achromatic means that you're trying to focus points of light. And achromatic telescopes, their job and their goal is to really get a couple of these lined up. Now, I don't care about the majority, like getting all three of them, but they usually shoot for two of these things lined up. Now, a chromatic lens, one color is focused on the line. So if you have a film that's collecting here, you're able to look right there, you're going to see things in the red, where everything else is going to be kind of shady and hazy. An achromatic lens, well, you'll start to see definitions of, well, they focus on getting two of these things lined up. And how they do that is they take our lens here, and then they force that light through another little block of lens. Now notice it's a different shape, and so that means those light sources are going to travel through here, and you're going to get a couple of these lines converging here, but still you're missing out on your green channel. And so this is where you start seeing the apochromatic, which is they typically reserve this for 3-lens systems. And so here you see light coming in, hitting this one, and then you have one final lens here that helps focus that third beam of light. And so you get this nice, hopefully beautiful picture with minimal chromatic aberration. And so this is what we mean by achromatic versus apochromatic. Come on. One more time. There we go. Now, as far as the achromatics go, this is what you see a lot in, from the department store things. There's a couple different glasses that they can use. If you use the same glass here, you're not going to change much, right? So they use 2 different glasses because light's going to travel differently through different mediums. And so here you can see that the red and the blue channel are lined up here, but the green is lagging, right? So that's kind of this general thought process. They've started coming out with extra low dispersion glass. And so you'll see this. And so this is essentially that 2-lens system, but kind of lumped together. This is an ordinary lens where you can see that we're not doing a really good job of putting those lines together. Well, this extra low dispersion glass means that they're not going to really force those other channels away. And so they try and clean that glass as much as possible to limit that plane, to make sure that that focal point is as close as they can with these 3. Now, these extra low dispersion scopes, you'll see them as ED doublets. And these ones are relatively non-expensive. Right now, depending on your money source, expensive could be a Big Mac at McDonald's, right? But these are going to be kind of on the lower end of this price. Now, the ED glass is going to do its best to control that dispersion, and that the chromatic aberration, but sometimes it doesn't do very good. Now, we can go a step further and put our 3-lens system in. This is what you'll see as an apochromatic lens. Here you have 1 lens, 2 lens, 3 lens. You get this nice little point here to focus on. You'll see this called an APO triplet, meaning that it's got 3 lenses that are focusing things together. Now, this is also what we call air-spaced, meaning that the lens isn't one unit together, and that these spaces in here are controlled, because as soon as light hits us, gets out of one void or one mass into something else, it's going to change shapes, right? It's going to change directions. And so that tells you that they're controlling for that. Now, this is a pretty cool image I found from a science paper that they posted. This would be a achromatic, and you can see, or a chromatic, where they don't have any of them lined up, right? Blue, green, red. Here would be your triple APO, where each time they're refining the shape. So you get all 3 of these colors lined up. You look through the scope, you get a nice, pretty picture. Now, these really good for taking images, right? Because all those colors line up perfectly. Something like this is going to irritate you if you're taking pictures, because you're gonna be like, why are these all these colors here, right? So that's what we got about those. Now, as far as apochromatic scopes go, we're up to here. Sextuplet, and today I saw a septuplet. For instance, the Jeffrey that posted that picture of the spaghetti nebula, this is the one he used, the sextuplet. So that tells you the quality of light that he's collecting through that scope. Right. And so this is your typical, well, sextuplet, I guess you'd say. So there's 6 lenses in there controlling that light. Now, there are some limitations of these, because it seems like that's a really cool way to go. If you can control that aberration, well, that'd be amazing. Like, why doesn't everybody just use that? Well, the problem is that the bigger the lens you get, the longer the focal length you're going to need to bring all those lines to a point so you can focus on them. And so if you have a huge 40-inch lens at the end of this big mamma jamma, here's Mr. Einstein in the 1920s down here, right? They had to, this is an elevator, and so they would bring people up so they could look through the scope, right? This is a big thing. These lenses are difficult to make. They have to keep the quality up. You have to figure out how to support it in a scope, which, if you're thinking about a lens, that means you're going to have to brace it around the edges. And the bigger these things get, the more fragile they become. And so it becomes an issue of engineering and mechanics. And it's going to cost a lot. So you don't see a lot of really large aperture apochromatics out there. This is at the Yerkes Observatory in Wisconsin. It's still around. You can go up and take a look through it from what I had gathered. So pretty cool piece of history there. Now, because those things cost so much money, well, we still were interested in the sky. Well, what if there's another way? Well, this is where Mr. Newton came around in the late 1600s and figured out and kind of added into some of the previous research that mirrors could be made parabolic. So instead of just sitting on a wall looking at yourself, well, what if one had a little curve to it? And you're like, oh, that's kind of weird. It's orienting my shape, and you're like in a magic fun house, right? And so we know that light can be bent by being being reflected from or through these mirrors. And so if you can make these mirrors parabolic, meaning that they look like this, that light coming in, you could essentially bounce light in and it would reflect off into a single point. Now, the advantage of this is you don't need a huge mirror, right? Like and it's not going to weigh much, and you can support it because light would have to hit your mirror and then bounce up. So you wouldn't have to just hold it around the edges. You could actually build a support at this back end. And so it's capable of reflecting light to a common point. And so this is where we get our reflector telescopes. And you'll often hear these called Newtonians for Mr. Newton, who kind of put this out there that, hey, we could bounce light off of a mirror instead of just sending it through a lens. And so the way that these Newtonians work is that light comes in through here, bounces off this mirror, and is reflected to this other mirror here. Now, this mirror is just flat, meaning that it's going to bounce off and take an angle. If you play pool, it's essentially just playing those angles. And you're going to get to a focal point out in this direction. You'll have an eyepiece that's going to be able to image that focal point with whatever magnification's here. And that's your Newtonian telescope. And so you often see some of these, what's the classic advertisement where they're showing somebody looking through a Newtonian, but they're looking this way and it's pointed, this end's pointed up. They're not going to get anything, right? So the light has to come through here. Now, the big question is, well, won't this get in the way? Well, remember that we're just showing one of these rays. All the light that's coming in is in millions and millions of lines. Cutting this out isn't really going to be that big of a deal because you're still going to have all the light coming around and reflecting back. And so these Newtonians are really good for seeing the night sky. The mirrors are cheaper and easier to mount. And so you'll have a primary mirror, secondary mirror, then your focuser with your eyepieces. And this is your classic Newtonian. We have a few of them here in the club if you're interested in borrowing. The eyepiece sitting off to the side, and so you're good to go. Now, with these, there's a few things to note. With the multiple reflecting surfaces, sometimes those things move. And if you're trying to send light, bounce it off of one thing and send it to another, you got to know where you're sending it. And I always think of this like whenever I had to get separated from my friends when I was in school, and they'd sit me by the window of the classroom, and I'd pull out my watch and I just kind of angle that light onto my friend's face. Now, again, I'm the last 6 kids, so it shouldn't come to surprise. But all I was doing was controlling the angle the light was reflecting. And that's what you have to do with these. Now, after they move a bit or they haven't been used a while, these things will settle, they'll be jostled, they'll be bumped, and you'll have to sometimes turn these, like maybe push it in a little bit, pull it out, push this in, pull it out. Remember, this is on a full circle, right? So you can essentially move that pancake all around in order to get it focused here. Now, with this mirror, sometimes you have to mess with that to make sure it's in line so that you get that image perfectly to your eyepiece. And so this is what's called collimation. And so if you're looking through your scope going, well, that's off, like I see a quarter of my field of view that I should be, well, it tells you that maybe this image isn't fully hitting this flat mirror, or maybe this is out of sight, like maybe it's hitting the wrong side. And so this is what we mean by collimating a scope, making sure that all of your lines of sight are set up. Yeah. Everybody good so far? Awesome. Now, these Newtonians, awesome. Problem is that we have another aberration that we have to worry about now, because these use spherical kind of items, right? Light's still going to bounce off of them at different speeds because those mirrors are like this. So the light hits here first, and it's going to get to my focal point quicker than the other stuff. And sometimes you'll see that your focal plane gets messed up back here, right? And so your plane of focus will change. And so you'll have to figure out how to deal with that. And so some of these Newtonians, that's one of their biggest issues, is that you'll see these spherical aberrations. Now, I typically don't see spherical aberrations come up too much in the complaints. Most people really worry about chromatic aberrations. But these are your two general types of scopes, right? So you have your refractor here and your reflector here. Okay. So whenever you're looking on our site, you'll be like, oh, this one's a Newtonian. Well, you'll know it bounces off a mirror, comes up here this way. Now, this just a typical look. This would be a refractor. Your lens is here, eyepiece all the way down here. This is what you traditionally think of when you see, oh, I got a telescope for Christmas. It's this. This is a Newtonian. Eyepiece goes here, light comes in, primary mirror. This is typically open, meaning that if your kid drops a pencil down here, it's on your mirror. It happens. Usually you'll have a cover here to keep stuff from going in. But it's an open system. And so, there's access points to how you can call it. Here you can see the different types of mounts. Looks like it's an alt-as. This one may be polar line. I can't tell, but this is kind of holding this up. Notice that this Newtonian has these braces around it, because you got to figure out how to hold on to these things. And that becomes quite a conundrum, because with these scopes, we can get back to our concept of aperture. Now, aperture is how big of a how much light can you collect in a single incidence, right? So like, how much light can I collect in my 0.04 seconds, right, as I'm processing? And so the aperture is going to allow you to collect a lot of light. The bigger the aperture, the more light you can soak in. The more light you can soak in, the better details you're going to get out of your images, the better quality you're going to see out of your scope. And so with the refractor, it's essentially as wide as this lens. With the reflector, it's usually labeled as the size of this primary mirror. And we can go from there. Sorry, the reflector. But this will sometimes lead to aperture fever, which is another fun term where you go, well, this 6-inch Newtonian's nice, but I could use a little bit more light. And you go, well, more light. Well, I just need to get a bigger lens, right? And so with these Newtonians, the question comes in, how big can you make a mirror? Because all you're doing is reflecting light back onto a focal point, right? Now, can you stuff that into a telescope? And the answer is yes, because they've done it many times. The largest 72-inch mirror, that's 6 feet if you're doing your math. It was built, it's in Ireland. It's on the Leviathan of Parsonstown. It's not Parsonstown anymore. I can't remember what the name of it is, but at the end of this thing, there's a 6-foot mirror, right? Now, again, the catch is that light is going to have to reflect all the way down to here, bounce off that 6-foot mirror, and come back up to the view, to the eyepiece up here. And so you have all these stairs going up, and that's how you access this thing, right? So you can make these things pretty large. Now, with that being said, Newtonians can get pretty big. And so the question is how big do you want it, and are you willing to lug that thing around? As I mentioned before, you want a nice sturdy mount. And as your Newtonians get bigger and bigger, you're going to want more oomph on your mount so you can do what you need. This is a 6-inch Newtonian mounted on a Celestron AVX, probably not close to its weight. So this mount's going to be able to handle it pretty good. As you get bigger, you need more sturdy mount. This is a 12-inch Newtonian, so that means there's a 12-inch mirror here. This looks like a base of a missile, right, holding this thing up, right? I'd be scared to have that thing on wheels, because I'm like, that sucker's going to tip. But that's just my brain going, that's not going to work. Now, that to me seems like it's going to be difficult to to spin around the sky and things like that. Well, this is where we enter Mr. Dobson. John Dobson kind of figured out a way to mount these Newtonian telescopes. So as they get larger, you don't have to put them up on a tall pier, tall mount, and they can sort of become portable. Now, I say sort of become portable because the bigger your Newtonian, the bigger your mount's got to be, right? And so this is what we call a Dobsonian mount. And here you have your Newtonian. So light would come down here, hit your mirror, reflect up, and here your eyepiece would be over there. Here's your eyepiece on this one. And so it's this wooden contraption here. People make those. People try and make them portable. You can put them on wheels. Sometimes you'll see the axis, kind of attached more to the scope down here to kind of account for the heavy weighted mirror. But these usually give really good optics. It's typically an alt-az mount. And again, as portable as you want to make it, as long as you want to carry around that big chunk of wood and throw a tube in your car. Okay? Now, this is a 30-inch Dob, not the 37 that Theo saw, but here you can see the eyepiece, and there's a big mirror down here just simply reflecting light, right? Here, come on, it's a 70-inch Dob. I watched the video on this. This guy, they put a reel. He's in Utah, and Salt Lake News had an article on this Dob that he built. In here is a 70-inch mirror that he got from what he said was a Russian spy satellite. And so they didn't build the satellite, and so he got the mirror, and so he built a Dob out of it, right? And so light would come in, bounce off of here, and be sent this way. And this is where you get, well, where are the walls of the tube? Well, it doesn't really matter, right? Because remember, all those light sources are just coming down, pounding what's down here. Some of them are going to hit that mirror. And whatever hits that mirror is going to come up here. And as long as your hand's not in the way of this, you're going to get that image, right? He's going to have to climb his stairs and get up there to the eyepiece, or I'm sure he's got a camera on there, right? Because that's the easy way to do it, right? Get up there once, set your camera, get back down. So we can do a lot of things with these Dob mounts. Now, how to choose telescope? Well, there's pluses and minuses to each. Reflector, open system, requires some maintenance, meaning that you're going to potentially have to collimate every now and then. If you go on, long bumpy roads to get to your site, you're probably going to have to collimate when you get there. If you don't, I would recommend, right? You can try it, but there's a chance stuff's going to be weirded out. Images can be upside down. You can get angles that kind of will fix that at the eyepiece that make it not upside down. Typically no chromatic aberration through here because you're not pushing it through a lens, right? So the light's just reflecting up, but you do have to worry about spherical aberration some, and it's less expensive for the large aperture. Because remember, with the refractors, you're building that lens, and the larger that lens gets, the more quality has to go into it, and it's going to be more pricey. However, refractors typically beginner friendly because normally don't have to collimate refractors very often. You sometimes do, depending on how they're set up. But pull them out and go. It's not bad there. Images are right side up, some color fringing, depending on the quality of the optics. Easier to see perfect circles. Long, but typically portable. Don't get the 40-inch lens, right? That's going to keep you in line. Refractor, there are some negatives. More expensive, less compact, chromatic aberrations, reduced light gathering. Reflector, negative, can't see space vampires. Why not? Mirrors, right? Hooray, all right, good. All right, now, what if, hear me out, you were to combine these two technologies, right? So we've got a way to focus light through a lens, and we now have ways to bounce light off of a mirror. Now, the larger the lens that you have, the longer the focal length you're going to need. Well, instead of getting a nice lens and a really, really long scope, what if you use that mirror, sit the mirror here, and bounce that light back? Well, that's not a bad idea, right? Because now we can increase the path that the light hits, right? And so this is what we call a compound telescope. or a catadioptric scope, or a CAT, as you'll sometimes hear them called. And we see this as a folded optical path. So remember, all of our light rays are going to come through here, bounce off our mirror, hit another mirror, and instead of getting kicked out like a Newtonian, it comes back through the base, and this is where your eyepiece sits. So now you're getting the benefit of that lens and a mirror, all right? This is another image from it. So you have your light from your awesome celestial body, comes in, bounces, hits a secondary mirror, and then comes out through here. And this one has an elbow on it, so you can see things right set up. And it's that simple. Now, the advantage of this, it's going to be short and squat usually, big tube potentially, depending on how big this is and how big your mirror is. But you're not going to have the 10 feet of telescope to deal with, right? And so there's typically two that we see more often than not. We have both of these capable of being borrowed. SCTs, which are Schmidt Cassegrain telescopes, and Maxitov Cassegrain telescopes, which we typically just call Max or Mac Casses. And each of them have this kind of general structure. Here, light would come in. This is your Schmidt Cassegrain, and this is a relatively flatter light source or flatter lens. And so light would come in, bounce off this mirror, bounce off this mirror, and then through here. SCTs are great because they aren't necessarily super heavy. I say that, but I have an 11-inch that I'm fighting around. It's still, you're still going to have a little bit of weight there, but a nice 8-inch SCT, you can see some really good things out of it. Light comes in, bounces, and you just collect back here. The other one is the Mac Cass. This one, bless you, has a little bit thicker of a mirror. And so you, bless you, if you're looking at one of these weird looking scopes with the eyepiece back here, and it looks like a big tube, and you see this mirror that has this dip in it, this concaveness, it's a Mac Cass. Okay. And what that's doing is it's focusing the light a little bit through that lens, comes back here, and then back to your eyepiece. Now, both of these increase the light travel. So you can get the advantage of that longer focal length. So it brings you a little bit closer to the skies. Problem with these is that this is typically a closed system, meaning that it's going to take a while for it to get temperature acclimated. And as things heat up and cool down, your glass and your mirrors get bigger or smaller depending. And as you're imaging, through the night, you don't want that to happen. Or as you're going through and taking a look through the skies, you don't want that to happen because you're going to have to change focus. You're going to have to change things. And so with these, you typically want to equilibrate them outside when it's close to the temperature that you'd like. The Max, because they have this huge lens here, they take a long time to equilibrate. So people typically don't use Max for photography, but they're pretty good for visual. Both of these are relatively portable. You see people that do a lot of astrophotography, like the SCTs. You see them quite a bit more than the Mac Casses. All right, almost done, I promise. So as far as types of telescopes go, refractors, lenses, sharp views, good for the planets. Reflectors, mirrors, great for deep sky objects. The CATs, kind of like the best of both worlds. You still have to deal with some things. You still have to collimate. But these are compact and versatile. You can lug them around. Not too bad. As I mentioned before, we're not going to get too much into it, but I just want to bring up the mounts matter because you got to be able to lug around whatever, to turn it around the sky, whatever you have. This would be an alt-azimuth. Goes up, down, and left to right. Pretty good for observational things. So like if you're at a star party and put it in alt-azimuth, you can just up and down, right? Excuse me. With equatorial, it wants to move along the ecliptic. And so that's where it kind of does this number. And it's hard to fight with it sometimes to get it to go where you want it to go. But if you're doing imaging, you polar align that. And if this is motorized, it'll just, you put it on, the whirlpool galaxy, and it'll just follow that as long as you're aligned well enough. And so these equatorials will track the sky rotation. The Dobbs would take this or this and put it on that simple alt-az mount, that big chunk of wood that allows you to go left, right, up, down. And then, as far as mounts go, well, you have options. If you're wanting to learn the night sky, I might recommend a manual. If you're like, I just want to see sky, well, depends on how much of a purist you are. Go-to systems aren't bad. The cost is going down as they become more popular because the market floods with them until now you can't get them. So now prices are going to start going up again. But these are really good for, star parties, especially like, hey, what do you want to see? I would like to see the Ring Nebula. And you go, and it goes, and you're at the Ring Nebula. It's pretty cool. Okay. As far as eyepieces go and magnification, there's a couple things to point out. Your telescope captures the light. That's what I've been yammering about for the last 30 minutes or so. I don't know what time it is. The eyepiece is what actually provides your magnification. So your telescope isn't going to change, right? That lens system is always going to put that focal point here. And so how do you get more magnification? Well, your eyepieces will come with a certain number, and that's your focal length. And what that focal length, you can kind of think of it as if you have a 30 millimeter eyepiece, it's going to put you 30 millimeters away from this focal point. And so that image is going to be here, right? Or here, as we can say. Now, if I'm in a 10 millimeter eyepiece, that's effectively going to bring my eye to here. So instead of seeing this big thing, now I only see this thing. And so it's going to be looking like it's zoomed in a little bit. So the lower that number on the eyepiece, the more quote unquote magnification you're going to get. And so we can find out total magnification you're going to get. You take the telescope focal length and divide it by the eyepiece focal length, and that's going to give you more magnification. Okay. So you can kind of do the numbers. The higher this gets, the lower magnification gets. The lower this gets, the more magnification you get. Okay. And then that gets to another fun question. Do you really need high power? Right? Some of these things we see in the sky are pretty big. Some of them are ridiculously small. If you're wanting to go for planets, they're small, right? And so you typically see the high power ones come out for that. If you're looking for nebulas and things like that or clusters, you don't really need too much power with those. And so becomes a preference on what you're after. Sometimes you want to get a little bit closer, but maybe you only brought a 15 millimeter eyepiece. We have things called Barlows, which will bring you closer, which is it's another lens system that brings this focal point of the eyepiece closer. So it will magnify it a little bit. The problem with increasing magnification, though, is you're limiting how much light makes it through. And so the tighter in you get to an image, usually the dimmer it is, right? So keep that in mind that there's pluses and minuses. And then with these, you also have filters. So all this light coming through here is nice and pure. But what if you only wanted, I don't know, the red scale or the green or the blue? We have filters that will allow only one of those to pass through. We have filters that cut out the wavelength of your light pollution from Nashville. We have filters that go after specific parts of the wavelength of the spectrum. And so you can see what lights are coming through those, right? So there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with these. This is what I was talking about with the eyepiece thing. So here would be a longer focal length on your eyepiece. You see Jupiter's kind of far away. Here'd be a shorter one. Jupiter looks close, right? Because you're closer to that focal point. Think of an eyepiece as kind of like a magnifying glass. Okay. All right. As far as first telescopes go, you don't have one. Consider your viewing goals, right? If you're going for planets, there's going to be differences. If you're going for DSOs, there's going to be differences there too. Portability, budget. If you're wondering, will a Dob work for me? We've got a lot of Dobs. Borrow one. Feel free. It's great. They're great if you want to lug them around. We have up to an 8-inch Dob, I believe. We have 6 inches, a couple of them. Some people like having a special refractor, like kind of small. Like you saw that sextuplet. Like, that thing's tiny, right? But it gives you such great views, and that's not going to take much to travel with. And then an SCT with go-to, depending on what you're after, right? So all these are going to give you different options. As far as observing goes, always recommend to at least let things acclimate so that, it doesn't matter how big they are or how small they are. You want to try and get as much variation out of there, like out of the way as possible, and just letting it sit outside for, 15, 20 minutes, unless you're one of those closed systems, maybe a little bit longer to acclimate, is going to do you well in the long run. avoid any excess heat. And so if you're taking images of the sun, well, you can't really avoid that. But if you have a motor on there or something like that that's going to generate heat, just be aware of that and see if you can figure out how to get around it. Red flashlight to help that deer and deer eye thing, because once you get blasted with that white light, all those cool things that you did to adapt to the dark get perturbed, and then you start to see funny things until you get readjusted. Red flashlights kind of keep the dark vision set. And if you're just starting out, we those of us that like doing photography of dark sky objects don't like the moon very much. You'll see this thing, but it's a great place to kind of cut your teeth on a scope, because you can find that sucker in the sky and it is bright, and you're going to see just how much light your scope can collect. Right? And so oftentimes we'll have a 20% filter on it to knock out 20% of light or something like that, to kind of allow your eyes to see it without them getting sunburned through the moon. Okay? And then finally, use us, right? If you're not a member, come talk to us afterwards. We have public star parties where people are encouraged to ask questions. There's a lot of members, especially in the groups, that want to help out, ask about, hey, I'm having problems with this, or I'd like to do this, or what do you think about this? There's a lot of people knowledgeable about telescopes. Not me, but a lot of people in the club knowledgeable about telescopes. We do have loaner telescopes to borrow, like I said, Dobbs and Newts and things like that if you're interested. And there's a ton of stuff on YouTube and a ton of online resources out there that have good quality articles in them. I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell all my fun college students, that if you see something and you're like, that's got to be too good to be true. Like, you can see this asteroid coming with your binoculars, right? Like, can you, right? Message us on Facebook. Theo will answer. No, we're not going to get hit by this asteroid. But ask us and we can kind of clear things up in terms of anything you see in your questioning. All right. So anybody got any questions on telescoping? Yeah.
All these years, and I have many of them, the term catadioptic, I can understand the optic part, but that front part,
Cata?
yeah, what's that refer to?
Anybody? I ain't got it. I imagine I could once I Google it and figure out yeah. I mean, I imagine it's combining many, like something like, like catalog would be multiple.
And then get around looking.
Yeah.
It up.
Yeah. It's a good
I
question.
wouldn't think of it as catatonic, which is how I am.
Not going to help with observing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Curved mirrors, catoptrics. So it's a combination of the words dioptrics and catoptrics.
Oh,
Look at that.
And lenses.
as in a catenary curve.
Yeah.
Like a hanging chain.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is my dwarf behind me. Oh, yeah. The other, I didn't mention, because maybe it's a topic on its own. This is one other telescope I didn't mention. This is electronic telescope. I run it through my phone. These are the lenses. Cute little things. That picture of the Whirlpool Galaxy that I had at the front end of the thing, I took with that. I don't know if it's going to get me a pod or anything like that, but I'm all about this, because as I'm putting the kids to bed, I can throw this on my porch and be imaging. I can be watching TV, check on my phone how it's doing. It's a nice way to go about it. But if you want to know about electronically assisted astronomy, I'm here. You may here have a C-Star. Yeah, there's C-Star here too, which is ZWO's electronic one. There's pluses and minuses to all of them. But what I love is that this cost me $400, whereas one of those big Mamma Jamma scopes, not going to cost $400. It's going to be a little bit more expensive. So what this does is it puts the sky in anybody's hands that don't think you have enough time or not enough money, right? This is a system all on its own. Very portable and rugged. I've dropped it a few times. Yeah.
It looks like you got two lenses.
Yeah.
Is that binocular type?
No, one's wide field and one's wide field and one's telephoto.
Oh.
Yeah. The telephoto, I can tell you, I can't remember what the actual numbers are, but with my Nikon crop sensor and a 600 millimeter lens, which puts me at about 900 millimeters, that's about what the telephoto is on this. And so it'll take images of up to 2 minutes now, and it'll track on its own as long as you're equilibrated and calibrated, and it'll just image and then stack them all together for you. So
So you mount that on the equatorial mount?
it's mounted now. So this is my equatorial. I point that north and I'm good. I have a corner of my porch
Yeah.
where the boards come together and there's a line. And so I put that leg on one part line, that leg on the other.
Oh.
And so I just go out every day and just make sure that's on the line. And
Determine that what line.
yeah, I'm imaging in 3 minutes.
So the motor drive is built in?
Yeah. Yeah. So this will turn and then this will do that. And so it just chases it across the sky.
Wow.
Yep. Nifty little contraption. Yeah.
That was $400, give or take.
When I bought it. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one of the things sounds too good to be true.
Yeah. Well, so yeah. So that's what I said. Like, if it sounds too good to be true, let us know. Yeah. Cause we've got experience with it. And like, I have the Dwarf 2 at home as well. So this is the Dwarf 3 and, I beta tested this for them. So like, I know the quality and stuff like that. And I've worked with them on updating their things and giving them suggestions, things like that, but it's pretty good. Yeah.
So there's no catch on it, like there's no digital subscription or anything to it, you own it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
But
the image you own it.
yeah, feel free to come by after. I can show you all the stuff on my phone. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
How old is it? No verb.
Nope. So yeah, so again, you want like the tighter focal length because planets compared to nebula is like you have one little dot in the sky versus or Andromeda, right? And so
Pretty good at wide, so you don't have to do.
yeah, this'll catch Andromeda in the full frame. Yeah, versus Sea Star, like I was drooling over it, but so here's what happened. A couple Christmases ago, I had a Dwarf 2 on my Amazon list because ZWO wasn't available on Amazon. And my wife and mother-in-law were pestering me about getting stuff on my list. So I put the Dwarf 2 on there. I didn't think I was going to get it, but I got it. And so I was like, all right, this is going to be great. ZWO would have got me a little bit closer because the telephoto is a little bit tighter. But I found out that I didn't have to do panoramics of Andromeda. And it was like, oh, that's perfect. So it's a little bit more wide field than what the ZWO gets. But the ZWO gets you closer.
That's 30 to 40. So there's rumors on that 30 probably, or at least that's all. I don't know if those are rumors or tests of dead.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to see if there's something higher, res.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the not knocking either one because they're fantastic. They both are the same price point. They both allow quick getting out. The Sea Star, a little bit heavier than this. And so I can throw this in a backpack and lug this up a mountain and set up and, or I lug this around. I actually have a video on it. The other day I was around Radnor and I was recording the eagles. And so it'll track them as they're doing their thing. So, it's got a terrestrial view. And so there's a lot of portability in there that goes. So, yeah, fun stuff.
What's the name of that again and who makes it?
It's a Dwarf. It's a Dwarf Lab
Dwarf Lab?
makes it. Yeah. From what I gather, places are starting to have them in stock now. The Dwarf 3 came out to the public, I think, in February. I think I've had this since September. So, but now they're starting to make it in. But I don't know how the tariff situation is going to impact like the sales of those. I think they're up to 500 now, but they come with filters. I don't have a filter for this, but it can do solar like that. This is what I took I used the Dwarf 2 for the picture of the sun earlier. So, but yeah, they'll do solar. So anytime there's clear sky, I'm there. Unless I got kids screaming at me. Then I deal with kid, then put it out there and then go deal with kid again. Good stuff. Any others? Yeah.
Just to put a little quick point on that, a lot of people aren't aware of the difference in size of some of the deep space objects versus planets. The planets are crazy tiny in the sky. So we need a very, very powerful telescope to see the planets, even though they're in our own backyard. But a lot of the nebulas and galaxies are actually pretty large, so you don't need a very powerful telescope. Now, I mean, a lot of people that are really surprised to learn that Andromeda is like 6 to 7 times larger than the full moon.
Yeah.
So you do not need a powerful telescope for Andromeda, but you do need a higher focal length to find.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. If you like, I think that there's pictures out there like, if Andromeda was as close as the moon, this is as big as we. And like, holy, like those kind of cool things. But yeah, the size of these nebula, like nebula means like just wide and spread out, and so a lot of them are. Now, a lot of the galaxy, the majority of the galaxies are these tiny little things that like that picture of the whirlpool. I had to crop in pretty good to get that up at the beginning. Right. So you're going to be limited to resolution, but they just updated it so you can stack over multiple sessions. So if I'm out there for 2 hours tonight, I can add that into my ongoing stack of the Whirlpool Galaxy, and the more light that you collect, the better quality of image comes out. So fun stuff. Yeah.
Are equatorial mounts and German mounts the same thing?
Equatorial and German equatorial. I think it's how they control one of the axes, right? I mean, they all do the same, right? Like the German equatorial versus a regular equatorial. I think it's one of the axes is free spinning, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't remember.
The terms are used interchangeably.
The declination axis. So
Yeah.
you got right ascension,
Yeah.
So if the German is like this, but you could also make it so that you could have like this, right? Which is what all those cell strap does.
Yeah.
So that's, it's not quite the same as a German.
Yeah. Because I know that I have an Ioptron Skyguider Pro, and it basically turns into an equatorial. As long as you're polar line, you hit this and it goes, you can spin it all the way around if you really want to. So I know that axis is freer to move. So
Also on that subject, if you have a motor drive and you want it to track and you have to polar align it, can you discuss the basic procedure for polar alignment?
yeah, it depends on the scope that you have. The best thing I could tell you is find Polaris and just make sure you get that in the center of your scope.
Make what?
Find Polaris and
okay.
and put it in the center of your scope, and
There's an app.
there is an app for that. My Ioptron.
I've done, like with my super basic, and if you come to any star party, I almost always have my basic Newtonian. I've looked at Polaris so many times that there's a particular, I know if I put Polaris and I can get 2 other stars in the field of view that makes like a little triangle, that's polar aligned. That's polar aligned good enough for 20 or 30 minutes, which is about the time span between kids reaching up and moving the scope.
Or knocking it over.
Right, so once you get familiar with it, it's not as hard as it sounds. There are cute little apps that what they do is they'll put up a little reticle for you and they'll show you in a clock face where Polaris should be. Because it's not exactly north, but it's not far.
Yeah.
So if for visual, just put Polaris in. And then if you're doing camera work is the only time you need to really, get it tight.
I can show you a really cool app that takes it one step further and allows you to use your phone to polar align during the daytime.
Oh, wow.
And so it takes your coordinates and you go north, and then it'll tell you up, down, left, right, and you're polar aligned. And so like when I was going after, I was trying to think, maybe I was at a big star party and I put my scope out early, just so I'd have it. So I didn't, when I got there, everything was nice and acclimated and didn't have to worry about polar aligning. It's pretty close. Yeah. The technology, man, it's crazy.
PS Line Pro.
Yeah, the apps. Yeah, it's pretty cool. The other thing I wanted to bring up, I'll stop tooting the horn here in a minute, but like with something like this, I control it off my phone, and I can bring my iPad out and pump into that as well. And so I can control it on my phone, and the iPad's just the slave. And so I can say, here, check this out, and they can look at it and zoom in, and I can build them a picture for them. So I can ask them, hey, what do you want to see? Moon, galaxy, nebula, and I can build them a picture and then pull it off my phone and share it with them so they can go with their own little picture of something from that night. So it's cool, fun stuff. Love outreach. Yeah. Any other cool things about telescopes? All right, awesome. Well, that's going to conclude the official me talking portion. If anybody brought scopes, feel free to set them. I think it's still possibly clear outside.
It is.
I-
Yep. If anybody brought their scope and needs some help with it, just feel free to set it up outside and we'll be rotating around and grab us and ask questions.
And I can set this up within a couple minutes. I don't know which way north is, so I'm gonna have to figure that out to align my legs, but but I'll have it set up in shortly as well.
Also just, I mean, take it FYI. So, ever been to Dyer before? Okay. So the big scope upstairs, we're gonna open the door to the big scope, but the dome is broken. The dome's not, they can't open the dome. But the upstairs will be open, so anybody wants to come up and take a look at the scope, we can talk about build that picture. So, but anyway, so we're gonna open that up tonight.
What happened to the drone?
That's some electrical issue that happened with it.
Yeah,
They called in.
Billy probably licked the thing and shut it up. Yeah, squirrels. Yeah. All right. Well, good deal. Well, if you have a scope, feel free to set it up, catch us outside or in here if you don't want to fuss with it out there. Thanks everybody for coming tonight.
Yeah, I got it.
And Theo's got posters. All right, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, Tom.
Yep.
Thanks. I enjoyed it.
Yep.
All right.